Welcome to the Grand Potential. This is the Grand Connection podcast. And today we are thrilled to have Lesley Everett as our speaker. She is going to be presenting to our community, and we are so honored. She is an international keynote speaker. She is an author. She has an amazing program called Walking Tall. She has presented in 25 different countries. This woman is so passionate about personal brand. We are super excited to see what she has to share with us on our podcast. So welcome, Lesley.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. I'm delighted to be here, really so.
Super, thank you. So can you share with us, we focus on the three values at the Grand Connection. One is connect, the second is create, and the third is collaborate. So let's visit connect first of all. So I'm curious about how you connected with this extraordinary passion and purpose and calling to really understand personal branding. Like, how did you become so passionate about that? And what's the backstory for you in your life?
It's an interesting journey for sure, and obviously I never planned this out when I was at school and thinking about what I wanted to do in a career. It was never a plan. I probably didn't exist. That job role didn't exist back then, and I always had the plans to be. I wanted to be an air stewardess. Can you believe? Now I'm only 5'1.5" tall, and I was applying for jobs at the age of 15. I wrote to British Airways and to other smaller airlines, and I'd get these really polite letters back, and then I think it was British Airways that actually said to me, well, there is a minimum height of 5'3". So I thought, I've got a lot of growing to do, but it was really the travel. I didn't really want to do that job, and actually now I realize I'd be completely unsuited to that job, but it was the travel. So the travel was always a big part of my life, and I had a cousin-in-law at the time who ran a travel business, and I remember that really resonating with me. Anyway, I didn't really know what path I was going to take, and I fell into a role in the legal profession and started training as a lawyer through the magistrates court system in the UK, which you could do then. But I very quickly realized that there was parts of that didn't suit me. And I guess that's where the personal branding journey started, because I started to filter out the things I didn't like doing and realized there were some things I did like doing. So from there, I took a role still within criminal justice, but in technology, which, a bizarre twist. But then I realized there were some parts of that I loved. And I gradually started to move up there and worked for a big technology company in London. And it was there that I realized that there were a lot of people around me that had great skills, but didn't necessarily project themselves well or authentically with impact to get them noticed and visible, and therefore weren't getting to where they should do in their career and where they deserve to be. And so it's in that environment when I started developing training programs as part of the work I was doing. I started presenting in big pre-sales presentations and looking at the people around me thinking, this is just not fair. And there needs to be something that helps people to be themselves and really package themselves and project that so they're not judged in a way that they don't deserve to be. So that was where it spurred from. And I started to do a lot of studies outside of my day job in psychology and in image and marketing and just stuff that I was interested in. And then I left in 96 in technology, did a bit of work in technology on my own, but I then started to study really hard and take various qualifications to get me on this track. And then it's evolved, of course, a lot from then, from the early 2000s to where we are now. But that's how it started. And I always look back and say, you can't join the dots until you look backwards. And I could see it as a real personal branding journey. And one I share a lot with clients now, because it filters down. It's a matter of filtering down what it is that resonates with you and your purpose, your values, what you're good at, and the things that you really don't want to be doing. And if we can just do that on our journey, that really helps.
Absolutely agree. And really inspiring journey to hear where you were as to where you are. Thank you for that. Now, I know that from personal experience and just becoming that channeled focused personal brand icon and expert in your field has really contributed to all these 7 strides with the Walking Tall program and creating a Walking Tall culture and supporting businesses to take a stand on that. Can you just connect us a little bit with some of those 7 strides? I'd love to know.
Yeah, I took a look back. This is fairly early on in the process when I developed the system, and it is very much a proven system which has been delivered in many cultures around the world, many different sectors, large corporates, small businesses and individuals as well. But when I looked at what are the core components of that system and that methodology, there were really 7 that stood out to me. They're very broad in the sense, but they really do sum up to me. If we focus on these areas, these are the things that can help us build our reputation and our brand. Incidentally, when I mentioned the word reputation there, often people have said to me, what's the difference between brand and reputation? And I think it's a good thing to say here that brand, I feel, is that bold intention of what we want to get out there. That's our intention. We can come up with the great words, and that's what marketing strategies often do, and the brand statements do. But reputation is the reality, and that's the piece that we really do project when we interact with people. And my whole focus is on the people element of the brand. That's the reality. That's what our clients talk about. It's how we make them feel, and that's what they put on paper, they put on social media, they talk to with their clients and their contacts about. So it's very much around the elements are, the first one is discovering who you really are, which I find when I work with individuals that they're not really clear who they really are, what really motivates them, especially if we run our own business. We fall into it for lots of reasons, and then we get hooked up in things that we don't really want to be doing, and we lose sight of where we really are and who we are. And I like to think of the work I do as thinking outside of the brand, because especially with small businesses, we actually start delving straight into the sexy bits, the logo, the website, what should it look like, the colors and all the marketing collateral. And there's a whole piece before that, or even if we're well into our brand and our brand's established, we can still go back and look at this piece. So the 7 strides are starting off with who you really are. That's the first one. And so there's a discovery process, which can take some time. The second part that is thinking about that impression, that first impression that people have, which often is digital now as well. And how often do people judge us in a way that's not in alignment with who we really are in those first few seconds? And it's always been there, but it's so important that I think even now it's become right on the top of our radar when we meet people. That first impression sticks. It takes an awful long time to get rid of that. Whether that's good or bad, it sticks. So there's a whole element on that's important. The visual brand is an important element, and that's the non-verbal, whatever form that takes, a visual, whether it's how you represent yourself on social media, whether it's how you show up on a video call, it's body language, whatever. We can't get away from that. People do have that in their minds. So we need to make sure that visual piece, however that's represented, is in alignment with that authenticity, which is our very first step, as we said. And then being memorable and visible. People, especially introverts, don't have the ability, or well, they think they don't, to be out there and be visible. Or how do I do that? I don't know. How do I build that profile? And if people don't know who we are and what we really stand for, then we're never going to get our brand and our expertise across. So visibility and profile building is key. I presume you wanted me to run through these as they.
Yes, please.
Yeah, there's a whole ton of stuff behind them. But
wonderful.
Presentational brand is what I call it, how we present a message, whether that's informally in 5 minutes in a meeting update, whether it's to investors, whether it's to a big audience, whether it's to the media. Certainly as small business owners, we have to be in control of how we present a message. There's no time for ums and ahs and starting off in second gear when we need to be in fifth gear right at the start. And we need to get personality across in that presentation as well. It shouldn't just be a whole ton of figures and stats and facts, and our personality needs to be in there for it to be compelling. So that's a key part of it as well. And then there's an element around the brand statement, those few sentences that really say who you are. And what I'll share on the program, the webinar program, is my espresso effect model. And in brief, now it's about the coffee beans representing elements in your life, pivotal moments, stories, things that you remember when you're challenged, that's something your teacher said when you were at school or your mum said when you were small, you've never forgotten. All of those coffee beans are represented by those moments, and then they get filtered down to be ground and percolated to create our purpose, our beliefs, our standards, our strengths, our motivators, all of those drivers. And in its tiny, purest essence underneath, that's our brand statement that comes from all of those backstory experiences. And that's a tough bit to articulate on our own. So it's a big part of our program, is articulating that expertise and who you really are. And the final piece is on consistency. No good being one person one day and being like this the next. And we create a confusing message, and then we don't allow people time to really understand who we are and talk about us in the way we need to be talked about. So in a nutshell, that's the 7 big strides. And there's a ton of information around all of those, obviously, that goes a lot deeper.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I love every single element. And I know there's lots of details in looking at what each element is along the process, but that's extraordinary. And for small business, this will be so powerful for them to just look in the mirror and look at where they've been and where they are going to, and authentically, like you talked about, who they are and what they stand for. Yes. Thank you so much for that. Now, I'm also curious about, just to connect with you a little bit more, that you really moved your business from the UK to the US. Now, how was that experience for you? That's a big move, my dear.
Yeah, and if I'd realized how big beforehand, I'm not sure whether I would have done it. But actually, when I hear myself saying that, yes, I would. Give me a challenge. It's a bit like a red rag to a bull, and I will just want to go for it. So yeah, it was a challenge, and continues to be to a degree, because we've been here now about 6.5 years. But the business was very successful in the UK and Europe, and I'd done some work over here in North America, and loved it here. So I always had this in my mind with this travel thing, and wanting to experience new cultures of moving over here. And it was very established, lots of great reputation, testimonials, and I was global anyway. Thought I could just move over here and then just expand. But of course, it was like starting again. It really was, in its truest sense. Got to build all those connections again, got to build credibility, got to get your message out there in a different way, got to learn the culture, you've got to learn what you need to say in order to get people's interest. And it really was starting again. So I had to go through this process of almost branding myself again here in a way that resonated in North America. And we've learned so much along the way, I can't tell you. We think we speak the same language, and there are lots of things that we don't. How we do business here is different to the UK and Europe. So it was huge, but an experience.
Well, and I think, it's really interesting to go through that humbling journey of restarting again and re-beginning and re-looking. So it's bringing you closer to what you're most passionate about, which is personal brand and reinventing, reintroducing. So, that's always best to be fresh and connected to.
Totally. And I think as a speaker and as a coach, I truly believe that if we're not living and breathing what we do, then we very quickly get stale. And I personally don't feel that we have the authority or the license to go talk about this stuff if we're not delivering what we teach on a day-to-day basis as well, or at least semi daily, weekly, or whatever. So I do go through a lot of that stuff myself. I still am, and I live and breathe it. Even when I'm on a stage, it's not just speaking about it. I actually go through it a lot with clients and ourselves. So it's very authentic, which is at the core of this whole methodology. It's this authenticity, which I can't bear it if somebody's coming across as they aren't truly who they are. I really want to help them to fix that.
And that's incredibly beautiful. And that is exactly what the marketplace needs right now, is that authenticity, that truth, that conviction, and that authority coming across so people can trust. People are searching, as you said. I watched your videos on YouTube. By the way, everybody who's listening to this or watching this, go to the YouTube channel, Lesley Everett. She's got lots of wisdom to be shared on there too. So I'm going to pass it over to Susan. She's going to focus on the second value at the Grand Connection, and that is create. So Susan, I'm passing you the baton.
Oh, Lesley, this is so exciting. And your coffee bean model, like, just got me craving coffee, just to let you know. I haven't had my coffee today. What a great story. Like, you just see how you've created your brand too with your own coffee beans. Like, when you talk, you have your X factor you talked about, the coffee beans, your walking tall, 7 strides to build reputation. Like, this is all your brand, and you've done an exceptional job. So again, as Carolyn said, check out the YouTube channel, subscribe. Do you have a newsletter? Can people subscribe to your mail?
We don't at the moment. No, we put energies elsewhere, but yeah, subscribe to the YouTube channel, or, just
that's the best place, because when you see somebody, when you want to learn about brand, you watch the people who are doing it. You're walking the talk, and it's lovely to see, and you're authentic too. So you live what you train people on. So when I talk to people, I'm about implementation, and let's get going. Like, people call me up and they want to get started, and they'll come to me and say, okay, Susan, I need to do some branding work. And they always think it's that logo. That's the first step. And I got to do the thing. Hey, let's go back to step number 1. Let's discover who you are. Because a lot of times everything isn't matching. Like, you've got, there's what they think their brand is. There's what the world thinks their world is seeing their brand. And then maybe what the brand really should be if they did proper research and targeted and were working in the niche that they should be working in. So they sometimes aren't matching, right?
That's right.
So what do? Somebody comes to you and you see that it's not aligned. What's that starting place?
Yeah, and I think to start off with, it goes back to that piece I said, thinking outside of the brand. So you rightly say, Susan, people think of brand and they think of certain things, marketing collateral, websites, and all of that, which is great. We need that to help project the brand. But there's this whole step before, and it's not easy to see what your brand is yourself. So I always say it's not easy to see the label from inside the bottle, which is exactly what it is. And I need help sometimes in my business to do that. I check things out all the time. How I see it, is it how someone else sees it? And what my clients often say to me is that you have a real ability to drill into my business, understand me and what I'm trying to achieve, and extract it and help to piece it back together and articulate it. And I don't need to know about the business. I've coached people in very senior level at, say, Microsoft and some of the world's biggest companies, down to small retailers, to realtors here. I don't need to understand their business in its entirety. And that helps. So first off, it's having that external lens on your business and who you are, and being able to extract that. So you can do a little bit yourself. And certainly there's some techniques that I can share where you can start to look at that. But again, you're just getting one dimension. So the other piece is asking people, asking clients, or asking good trusted colleagues, what is it that you think I do? If you're telling somebody about me and talking about me, what do you say? Because that can be so insightful. And I've done this myself, and I've found over the years, if I ask that question, I get something back and I think, oh, goodness, that's not really what I want to be putting out there. I started off as an image consultant in this business so many years ago. And there was still some people a few years ago I discovered that were still calling me that. And I was horrified. So I thought, well, I need to be aware of these things. So it's asking the questions. What is it that I do for you when we work together? What do you get from me when we work together? How would you describe me in a few words to somebody who's looking for something that, what the work that I do? How do you describe me? You'll get so many gems from that. And then it's pulling this insight that we have ourselves together with that feedback. And that's where I can come in and I help to then pull that all apart, piece it all together and articulate it. And that's where your differentiator comes from, which we can't always easily see ourselves.
So I'm Carolyn's jumping up and down. So I'm just going to add in the part about Carolyn loves working with clients on getting their testimonials. Yeah, that's where she gets that feedback. So she actually will work with people, and she'll interview them to get that and draw out from the testimonial the best. She uses it as a testimonial, but it's also a learning process for them to discover what it is about their brand that other people are seeing. So like she's jumping up and down. I can see her. And then that's why she loves masterminds too, because you've got this peer-to-peer support where you get a relationship with these other people in your group and you can get that feedback too.
Yes.
And, working with a professional like yourself gives you that outside perspective. You can't see the forest when you're stuck in the trees. Like, this is what it is all the time. And I'm a marketing consultant, and I need help. I get feedback from my colleagues on what my marketing is doing because I don't see it always. And
that's right. So important. And I've worked with marketing directors and people in marketing as well. And they say to me, I should know this stuff. I do this for their business or for the company. And I said, well, it's so difficult when it's about you. It's not easy to do at all. And I'd go as far as to say, you can't do it thoroughly on your own. So those testimonials are so crucial. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great starting point. Now, back to like, it's more than just a logo. Let's just dig into, where does your brand show up more than just a logo? You've already mentioned, how you present yourself. Can you talk some more ideas where people need to start thinking and asking and getting feedback on their brand in all the touch points of their business?
Yes, I think, social media is obviously an area that we need to be very well aware of. And what I do when we get to a point of really getting to understand what a client's brand is and what differentiates them and being able to articulate that expertise, is then looking at how do we get that out there in a way that's going to land in a way that describes us authentically. And, social media is somewhat a lot of people's bane of their life because they really don't want to do it. Other people love it and that just put it out there like a fire hose and there's no consistency. My focus, once we've established what that differentiator is to have a very clear online digital strategy as well, with the profiles, with the posts, the things we talk about, the things we share, the things we can get out of the media, which we can hook up on with our topic area, and keeping that very holistic track of what our brand is, rather than putting out random stuff because it sounds good. If it's not in alignment with your brand and expertise, you could create sort of confusing messages for people. So that's a really important part of our brand once we've established it, what we do next, that digital reputation that we build.
So yeah, we just had a mastermind, Carol and I did, for marketing, and a big emphasis was on coming back. Like, people are shooting darts, right? They're just all over the place, and coming back to, let's get that strategy in place. What is your brand? What is your reputation? So that you can create that foundation that all of your marketing aligns to as you do it, and to come back. Now, what would be recommendations for somebody who's working with a VA or a marketing assistant that's helping them do this? Because you bring somebody in, and we had this happen in our businesses. We had to train our marketing people what is our brand, because they're not our voice. They're being our voice, but yet they don't have it they're not in our head. So how do you work with somebody else to get that system in place for them?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Obviously, every scenario is different. But if I take this to a business point of view, if I take it to the big business, first of all, in that they'll create a brand and create messages and then put posters on walls and widgets on desks and assume that people understand what the values and the mission and the vision statement is, and then that they go and live and breathe that every day. Well, that doesn't happen. And the reason why it doesn't happen is because you haven't made that connection between that brand and me personally. They haven't addressed the what's in it for me factor. So whether it's a small business or a large business with a VA, for example, as you mentioned, it's really talking about maybe, getting around a table, really talking about getting their input on what these values that we've set for our business really mean. What is your take on that? How do you see that? And then giving them the tools to develop their brand in alignment with that, so they can interpret and internalize those values themselves and say, right, here's what I do every day that really feeds into that. I don't do it the same way as my colleague. I do it in a different way, but that's fine. So we have to be very mindful that everybody's an individual and allow that growth and empower them to be who they are, but under the umbrella of what we're trying to achieve. So it really gets down to that what's in it for me factor. So don't expect someone to come on board and tell them our values are X, Y, and Z, and they just go and deliver on that. We have to allow them to have that.
It's always easier said than done. And we're working right now on a branding document, a branding guidelines that have in it, you know, all of our visual elements. Because every once in a while I'll see the wrong logo's been put up, or they've used the wrong font or the wrong color. So that's your, you know, some of your style stuff. But then also the voice and the words. And so we're making like sort of snippets of text bites. I'd call them like in audio, we'd call them sound bites, but text little snippets that people can use when they're making posts or commenting and engagement, so that we keep the same message across all the platforms where we're communicating. And it's a lot. And it's more than just, you know, say we talked about social media, but it's also the signature of your email.
Yes.
The background of your Zoom, how you come across, how you dress. There's one woman, she always has this red fridge in behind her, and it's become part of her brand because she's a realtor and it's about houses, and that's her red fridge, you know. And another person we partner with, she's always got the red glasses, and she's got a red straw in her Zoom meetings, but her branding is red.
Yeah.
She's just tying it all together, lovely, and it fits her personality. And the red is, you know, she's vibrant and dynamic, and it all comes together. And it's just to think, everybody, it's your brand is all of this. It's you know, it's you, it's your visuals, it's your messaging. It's so much more than what people originally think it is when they first learn about brand.
It is. And I think this era that we're in now, where, you know, remote working is not going to go away entirely. We know it's not. We're not going to go back to where we were. You know, our backgrounds allow, I think it's been such a positive thing, especially in the business world, where you'll see an executive working from home and you see a little bit of a glimpse into their life, this other dimension of their brand. You know, the dog might start barking, or the window cleaner turns up in the middle of the call. And I think that's very cool for personal branding and authenticity. So I think we've got an opportunity there to express that a little bit more and add that dimension that we've never had before.
So I've got two more questions here. One of them, this has just come when I've been reading through all of your amazing website. What does the X factor represent for businesses? Because this has come up, and I just love what you talked about here. Can you just share a little bit on that?
Yeah, I think it goes back to something I mentioned earlier, and that is your true differentiator. And, you know, your differentiator will often come from that backstory, and then how your people individually represent that story, particularly leaders. If we're talking a medium-sized, large business here, then it's very much about how you represent that differentiator, that backstory. That's the X factor. That's the tiny piece that no one else can copy, that's yours. And if you really work on that and get that out there consistently, then you've got that X factor. And very few people do that very well. So that's how I would define that.
I got my goosebumps happening, or as Carolyn calls them, truth bumps. Like I just live marketing. This is really all I do. and like when you said that, like, yeah, oh gosh. And to get that and to find that and like, you know, I've worked with thousands of businesses over time, and yet the people who get that, then you see it when they do it all well, and they get that professional brand figured out, they get their X factor in place, they just have what they get that momentum. And as we had at our talk with Mark Schaefer, they build that cumulative advantage. That's his new book out there, that's what happens. And to go back and work with somebody like yourself, that and be part of a mastermind, be part of a community where you can get that experiential feedback you need, you can build that foundation that will take you to that level that some people never get, or some people spend, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to get and don't do it. Like, get that foundation right at the start and do that work. Do the work at the beginning. It's always that. Do that foundational strategic part at the beginning, get your branding in place so you understand it, and then you can just grow and it will just happen.
Absolutely. And, you know, there's a lot of people out there probably listening and watching this that said, well, I've spent all this money on my brand. I can't do now. I've missed the boat. And that's not the case. You can still bring this in and really maximize the investment you've already made by bringing in this dimension of the brand. As I said, think outside the brand. It's really important to do that. And talking about the X factor for individual small businesses, you yourself are the X factor. You just got to make sure that you extract and articulate what your unique expertise and experience is, and that end result of what you personally give the client, that's the golden thread, that's the gem in the middle. And it's so important that we do that. So it's never too late. Even if you've spent a lot of money on your brand, you can save a lot of money potentially if you're starting right now to do this piece first. But if you have already done it, this really maximizes the investment to do this exercise. Yeah.
Oh, so powerful. Everybody listening, this is so powerful to get figured out that X factor for yourself, and work with somebody that can help you extract all the things you need and put that brand into place in all the areas that it is. Now, I've got one last question, because I have a lot of clients who are introverts. They'll say to me, but I don't want to be on social media. I don't care about my brand. I just want to sell my product. What do you say to them?
You want to sell your product, you need to get it out there somehow, and yourself out there. But it's not always about being out there, being at every event you possibly can be, being at the forefront of everything. It's really not always about that. And I have a lot of clients who are introverts, and they're filled with horror when we talk about visibility and profile building. But there are ways to do that. Certainly social media, if we follow a thread, we find that the niche that they are happy with in terms of getting relevant, highly specific information out there that's relevant to their brand. That's a great way of doing that. There are little apps. In fact, I've got a tip sheet that I can send to anybody who wants it with my visibility ideas. So I can give you, people can just email me for that, and I'll certainly send that through. And that gives you some thoughts around it. There's a little app that I use that is just one example of how you can be visible and memorable without having to be out there all the time. And it's called Touch Note. It's been around for a while, and there's probably other apps that are similar, but I use it a lot. And it's you just do it on your phone. You can take a photo of something. I'll often do this in a bookshop. I'll see something or a quote or anything at all that I can take a photo of, and then just send it to that person that's reminded me of. Or somebody mentioned something the other day, and I see something, I take a snapshot, and I can write a personal message on the back of the postcard that gets sent, and it goes anywhere in the world within about 3 days. And it's personal, so I can write that message and send that image. That's a great way to just be visible and keep on people's radar.
And that's more one-on-one. So for those of you who say, you know what, I don't want to be on a, StreamYarding it to thousands of people, that I'm not sure you can target your audience. And if you're niche and you've got a niche target about, your customers, that may be the best way to build those relationships that are really powerful. And they become power partners and referral partners, and they know you and your brand. Because if your brand is so tight and everybody knows it, they know that's the person who's this. They know how to say who you are, because it's just that personal brand is I go to the words, but it's just, I like to say it's very well aligned and so solid that people can refer you easily.
Yes, it's focusing on that 20% rather than the 80%. That 20%, your top supporters, your fans, treating them really well, putting your energies, if you're introverted, putting your energies into those people, building those relationships, asking for that referral, or asking them for their feedback on your brand, and really treating them well. That's often what introverts will be very good at. There's a book, actually, I just got this out ready. It's called Brag, by a lady called Peggy Klaus. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's great for introverts. And it's the subtitle is The Art of Tooting Your Own Horn Without Blowing It. So it's with getting your brand out there, bragging about what you do without having to shout from the rooftops about it. And there's some great little tips in there. I don't know when she wrote the book, but it's still a book that I often recommend, particularly for introverts. I put a post on LinkedIn just yesterday. It was an article about the extroverted introvert. And that's exactly what I am. People think because of the job I do, I'm just extroverted, and I'm not. I have a level of introversy in me as well. And it's a fascinating article to read.
Oh, I'm going to go read it right after we get off here, because that's very, very relevant, and I'm going to share it. So this is what happens on social media. You read something, you get to know people, you start sharing it, and we all grow together. Thank you so much, Lesley. Carolyn's jumping up and down for her turn again, so I'm going to pass it back to her.
I feel so inspired by your position, and I love what Susan said. And this is really, I know that this is what you're about, is your brand is really about what people say about you when you're not there. right?
You worded it very well there, Carolyn.
I thought so. So I thought I'd just weave that in, and this X factor, I just want to bring in this one piece because I really feel that that's what we're about. I mean, we started the Grand Connection because of this absolute desperate need in the marketplace for people, for businesses that would feel lost and in fear and needed that support and community and education on business. And that is our X factor, that incredible drive and purpose and passion to impact the small businesses around the world. And I think that's what people are talking about us when we're not there, that this organization really is here to help us. And that's our desire. That's our intention. That's everything. So what we stand for here is really representing your X factor, which makes my heart sing and makes me very happy. So
absolutely, you two nail it. You really do, and you're a powerful force together with the different approaches you have. You really do live and breathe what you say. So well done on that. You're a great example of all of this.
Yay, 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 yay. Thank you. So my third piece here, which is my favorite piece. Well, I love them all, but this is my favorite. I think it's the core value that we represent in every level of our brand. What we stand for is collaboration. And, the main reason that Susan and I started the Grand Connection is because, you can't do this alone. It doesn't work. You need to have a community. You need to have, strategic alliances, power partners, that support system and tribe around you, that 20% you just focused on, Lesley. And the people are out there, they want to support you. But, I'm curious for you, Lesley, in your position, you've just moved from the UK to the US. I'm curious about, your position and mindset and philosophy on this concept of how important collaboration is for businesses from your perspective.
It's absolutely critical, and it's what's really got me to where I am, and I've achieved what I need to. When things go wrong, I've got the network, I've got those trusted people I can talk to get advice. As women particularly, we're very good at asking for advice, and I have done that. And so my network is global. And I, as a speaker globally, I've met some amazing people around the world. In fact, it was Mary, I think, who introduced me to you, and she's in Canada. And we met, I was president of the Global Speakers Federation back then, and we met back then in 2013. And so that was through that. And all of my work, if I look back over the last 2 years, which has been a critical period in everybody's business, we haven't done the calculations yet, but in my rough head, it was 92% of the business in the last 2 years has come from referrals and network and repeat business, not new business. And I think that's what's kept us going. It's so important. So I have a lot of connections around the world, mastermind groups. I've had 2 or 3 over the years. One that was so valuable to me from about 2005 to 2008 was an international speaker mastermind group. There were 8 of us from Dubai, Australia, from South Africa, from the UK, from the US, and we all got together in different parts of the world where we could. And it was an amazing support network through personal challenges, business challenges, and any one of those people still today, 12 years on or whatever it is, still I could call in the middle of the night and ask for help if I needed it. So the collaboration is key. Affiliates working with people, working with their network, supporting their network, that comes back as well. I can't tell you how important that is, and stress that. The volunteer work I've done as well, that's important to me in terms of collaboration. And certainly the presidency role of the Global Speakers Federation was a huge commitment from a volunteer role, and various boards I've been on, local community, supporting the Chamber of Commerce, just doing that very locally as well is part of the network. And I can't tell you how that's been instrumental right at the core of building the business.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned mastermind. I'm so passionate about mastermind because, even if we're really successful, Lesley, you're extraordinarily successful. You've spoken in 25 countries. You were the president of the Global Speakers Federation. And we all, doesn't matter what level of business we're in, whether we're at the top range level to just starting out, we all need collaboration. We all need support. And I think the key factor here that Lesley's mentioned is just to be open to that. And the role of what that looks like can be being a part of a mastermind, volunteering within your community, volunteering for associations, organizations that you're purposeful and passionate about. And it's creating that support network that you can tap into. I was in a mastermind, 20 years ago that I could call any of those people, same as you, because it's about relationship, people.
Yeah.
And over time, as you support each other, it gets closer and closer and closer. So that's, I think collaboration is absolutely critical for every business person all over the world at any stage of the game, or whether they're, like I said, starting out or extraordinarily successful. So that's my final question for you, Lesley. And I'm just, I would love to find out how our audience, either visually watching us on YouTube or listening to the podcast today, how they can get a hold of you and connect with you.
Great. Well, there's a couple of ways. So I have two websites. One is walkingtall.org, O-R-G. That's the main Walking Tall site. My speaker site is leslieeverett.com. And Lesley is spelt with an E-Y. In North America, often it's spelled I-E, so Lesley with an E-Y. And my email is leslie@walkingtall.org. And there's also, you can go on the website and see a link through to everything we're doing, from public programs to working with individuals to working with bigger businesses. So those would be the key areas and ways to get hold of me. But on LinkedIn as well, I use LinkedIn a lot these days as well. So do connect to me on there, and I'd be happy to. And if anybody wants, I do a lot of like 20-minute just complimentary calls. If someone's got a burning question about their business and their brand, I'm always happy to do that. And that's at the bottom of my email. I can give you the link to that, to just book a slot in my calendar, because I learn from that too. So.
Absolutely. And it keeps you connected to what the needs are within the marketplace and keeps you inspired, I always say, as we serve, right?
Yes, yes.
So magnificent. Thank you. Thank you for your generous contribution to our podcast. I love everything that you stand for. I feel your purpose, your passion, is your gift from God to serve the world. I just feel it. I'm so happy for you and feel so much gratitude that you will be speaking at our event at the Grand Connection. We're super excited about that. And also for you contributing to all the folks that will be able to listen to this podcast till the end of time. So thank you, Lesley. We thank you. Susan, do you want to wrap it up here?
I'd like to thank you. Lesley, one final tip. Okay, we're going to get out there. What's the first thing someone listening here should do to start thinking about their brand?
They should carve out a couple of hours quiet time in their calendar to go sit and say, right, here I am right now at this point in my career, in my life. What is it that really drives me? What's my purpose? What's my motivator? And switch off to everything. Switch the phone off. Don't have any Wi-Fi around you. Just go do that. That's the very first, simplest thing you can do. May not come to you right away, but you've started the process. And if you can keep doing a little bit every week, 30 minutes a week, just quiet time with nothing else other than to reflect, that's a great starting point.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Such a pleasure. Thank you. I'm honored to be with you today. Thanks very much to you both.